Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Barb Adwell-Polker, and I'll be sharing with you today the results from my MarkStrat simulation that I completed as part of marketing management this summer. As part of this marketing simulation, I marketed the product Sew Nights to a group of end customers. This presentation will outline a lot of the successes and the failures that I had as part of this assignment. For the agenda today, we're going to cover a few topics. The first being an overview of the firm, followed by its performance from an overall perspective as well as from a segment and looking at it from a financial perspective. Followed by that, we'll look at a lot of the marketing aspect. The first I'll be looking at will be the segmentation and the targeting and the positioning of the product, followed by the 4 Ps of the marketing mix: the product, the price, the place, and the promotion of the product. And lastly, I thought it made the most sense to save the lessons learned to the end to better illustrate opportunities that I would see for improvement for the future that other students would benefit from. So first, starting with an overview of the firm, Magneto Industries operated for 6 periods. They produced Sew Nights, and they targeted 3 consumer segments. I chose to target only 3 segments, and this really wasn't at the start of the class, but rather going into the second period. I realized quickly that if I were to attempt to target too many products, that my marketing spend would be spread too thin, and that I would not be able to fully penetrate a market as much as I would want to. So as a result, I opted to target the Move brand to the Explorer segment. They were looking for a mid-price range product. I targeted the Most brand to the Shoppers consumer segment with a mid-price range product. And then lastly, I targeted the More brand to the Savers, who are looking for a low performance and really average convenience product. I'm very cautious spenders, but there's a whole bunch of them, so a lot of opportunities for sales in that space. So how did we do overall from a firm and a segment perspective? Well, as an overall firm, we started out a little weak. We started out on equal footing, with the same share price index as the other companies. But I think I made some poor decisions in the first period, targeting too many brands, and I think that metrics and results quickly showed that. I started to play catch up going into the second and the third periods, but there was a lot of room for recovery, and it's taken a little time to get back where the firm originally was. So from a brand performance perspective, I think most started out the strongest, but they faced tough composition with everyone going after the Savers and a lot of folks going after the Shoppers market. More I introduced in the second period, and it's definitely starting to grow now, but it took a while to get the brand awareness that I would like for the product. And then lastly, Move was an incredibly weak product for Magneto, and I evaluated phasing it out, but introduced R&D instead in the second period. From a segment perspective, most ended up being the second in the shopper segment. There was definitely a much stronger competitor, but again, they came in second, which was good. More was second in the Saver segment. And then lastly, Move was first in the Explorer segment. So if you see the gauge at the bottom of the PowerPoint slide, I felt like, definitely a lot of room for improvement. I wouldn't say my performance was, was bad by any means, but definitely a lot of room for improvement. So when looking at this gauge, I would say we really were about yellow. Financially, how did we do? Well, a couple things to highlight here for you. One is if you look at the fourth and the fifth period, we definitely lost earnings those periods. That was due to a few reasons that I'll highlight. One is you'll see our cost of goods sold are pretty high for the revenues that we have. Our margin is pretty low for our products. This is because we're targeting at the mid-range consumers, and so we need to sell a lot more product to be able to make the margin that we were perhaps making back at the very first period. Additionally, you'll see here that we had a really high inventory selling costs. This is because we did R&D and we had leftover product using the prior version of the product, and we had to sell that at a bit of a loss. So I really think those were two of the key causes. And then also moving on, you'll see, we're still spending the same on marketing, and we're not making as big a margin. So that definitely is impacting your bottom line. Now you see if you're going into the sixth period, we started to recover, but it wasn't soon enough. In the sixth period, we did have the highest revenue and the highest sales, but definitely have an opportunity to grow the SPI back where it was in the very first period. So moving on, if you look at the market segmentation for the product, there's a couple things that I want to highlight for you. So as part of our marketing plan, we opted to target only 3 of the 5 consumer groups. Reason for that was, you can see from the chart that savers were, we saw, or rather I saw in the next 5 periods that the savers were going to grow quite a bit. Same goes for the shoppers, that these market segments were both going to, savers was going to double in the course of 5 years. Shoppers was going to grow by over 50%. So I knew to target those 2 right away. Lastly, I chose explorers because I saw from looking at the multidimensional map and looking at what the other companies were doing, no one seemed to be going after the explorer segment. So I saw an opportunity to try to target to that consumer group. So our objective for this was to grow, or my objective for this was to grow the stock price index. Didn't grow as much as I intended it to do so, but had the class been a little bit longer, I think I would have done much better. My intention was to go after, what these groups were interested in and how they wanted their products to be designed. So looking here, if you look at the segmentation strategy at the bottom of the slide, what you'll see is I really spent all my advertising dollars going after each of the key consumer segments that my groups were, that